In this video, I'm going to show you how I would actually draw the graphs that you're going to have to use in your paper. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can draw graphs. You can do, say, Excel, you can do Google Sheets, you can do Paint, you can draw it on a sheet of paper and input it that way. And all of these will work, but it's not the actual way that I prefer. And in this video, I'm going to try and show you a clean and easy way to insert graphs within your paper without doing a whole lot of extra work, especially since all I'm looking for are very simplified graphs. So there's one of two ways that I would do it, and it just depends on what you're more comfortable with. I would either use Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Personally, I would like to use Google Docs because I'm more comfortable with it, but either one is going to work. So let's go ahead and start. Let's say that you go ahead and write your introduction paragraph, and then you're writing the main body of your paper, and oh look, now you need to actually insert a graph. Well, how do you do it? Well, I'm going to show you first how to do it in Google Docs. So now it's to the point where I'm ready to insert a graph. So I say insert, and I'm going to say drawing. Now the first thing I want to do is, like I said in one of the videos, is that we want to do the vertical and horizontal axis, right? We want to use straight lines. So we go over to here to where it says line. And we just want a straight line, so it's actually going to be this one right here. And as you can see, there's a lot of different things you can do right here, but we just want straight lines for this video. So we go to actually draw this straight line, and we draw it down. We have a little bit of an issue. We don't know exactly what's 90 degrees or straight up and down. So we could put it anywhere. Now we could try to follow these little checkerboard boards, but I'm not that good at it. Well, here's a little trick to get around that. You can actually press the shift button. Whenever you press the shift button, it pretty much locks in that line at set angles. So it's either going to lock it in at a completely straight up and down angle, can lock it in at, say, 15 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees. Then it just goes on, and you can lock it in at, say, 60 degrees and 75 degrees and then 90 degrees. And you can lock it in at any one of these angles. But it helps, but by pressing down that shift button, it helps kind of lock it in. So we're going to go ahead and draw this line. Now, before we go too far, we want to label every line that we draw, right? So I want to come over here and I want to put in, because this is a vertical line, we're going to say P for price. Now we can adjust this size within this text box like we normally do and say, alright, we want it at, say, 10, size 10, or we want it size 12 font, or anything like that. We can also come over here and drag this particular text box in any place to make it look cleaner. Another thing that you can do is, if you want to do small changes or even large changes, if you click on this box to where it's not, you're not typing in it, but you're actually moving it, you can actually move it by using your arrows on your keyboard. And it kind of makes some big jumps. So if you want to do small movements, you hold down the shift button and use the arrows, and it makes small adjustments then. So those are a couple of little quick tricks if you don't want to do everything using just your mouse. So now we have this price line. Well, what's next? We want to have the quantity line, this horizontal angle. So we go back up here to line, click on line, and then we can draw a new line right here. And you can make it as long or as short as you want. If you're OCD like me, you might try to make it exactly the right size. So let's say you've already drawn this line and you want to adjust it now. And you were originally on this little icon. Well, now you go over here and you can click on the arrow icon. You click on the arrow icon, and then you can hover over, say, like the text box, or over this line, or over this line, and you can click on it. Well, now you can adjust the size, as well as if you hover over it, you can click on it, hold it, and then move it around. So we're going to go ahead and put it back, and we're going to make this one just a hair longer. So now we need to input another text box. Well, there's a couple ways. You can go through the same process of clicking on text box and then dragging it out and going through the same process that what we did over here. Or you can go back up here, click on the arrow, click on this text box, not to where you're typing in it, but clicking on it to where you can actually move it around. Press Control C and Control V Or another way that you can do that is just right click and say copy, right click again and say paste. And now you can drag it around, and instead of going through the same process of trying to reformat the size of it, you can just simply copy and paste it, and it'll have the same size and font as the original line. Now, we want to go ahead and enter in our supply line. So we go over here, we're going to draw this supply line. Of course, we want to label it. So we're going to label this one, we're going to make it size 8. We're going to label S, S naught, just like we showed in one of the last videos. We want this a little bit closer, so we're going to kind of tweak it and make it look pretty. Now, what if we want these lines wider? Say we want this supply line to be wider. You come up here, and on where it has these 3 or 4 different lines, you can adjust the weight of it, the width of it. So let's say we want it at a size 4. We want this line to be very thick. And as a result, we want to adjust this to say size 12. And let's say we don't want it black. We might want it to be, say, blue. So what we do is we click on where this little pin is, where it says has that black line. We can say, actually, let's make this one red. And now it's red. So then you can come on here and you can go ahead and make your demand line. We're going to make this one size 3. We're going to make this one a blue line. And if you click on somewhere where the line with the line icon already clicked on, then it's going to throw up an extra line and you can just simply delete those. So we're going to go ahead and copy this box, drag it down here, and we're going to label this one D naught. Now we want to go ahead and add our equilibrium line. So we go over here, we're going to select the line, we're going to draw it down, and it's not in the right place. So we can either move this using the arrows, so we can either move it using the mouse, or we can move it using arrows, just like we did with the text box that was shown earlier. Now I want this one to be a dashed line, not a solid line. As you can see, it's currently a solid line. So to make it a dashed line, you come up here, you have the color, then you have the line weight, you have that line dash. So you can come in here and make it any one of these dashed lines. Let's go ahead and make it that one. Now we want to enter in a new line right over here for the equilibrium price. And again, we want this to be right on that equilibrium mark. We want this to be a dashed line. And we need to go ahead and enter in our text boxes. And all I did was I copied and pasted, and I'm moving it with the mouse. And we said that since we're using P naught, or S naught and D naught, we want to make this P naught. Now, we see that the text box isn't quite large enough, so we just widen this text box, and now we have P naught. Now we can take the same text box, copy and paste it, come down here, and I'm just moving it with my arrows right now, and we can press enter. Enter just allows us to start typing in that box. We can delete this P, type in a Q, and then we can go ahead and add in our second line. So let's say that this is an inward shift of the supply curve. So we just add this second line right here, and remember to kind of lock these lines in at certain angles. All I'm doing is I'm pressing shift. So we want to make this one, say, a green line, a dark green line. We want to make it a little bit of a heavier line. So let's make it a 3 weight, and we need to go ahead and add this text box. So we say Control C, V, we go right there, and we label this one, instead of S naught, we're going to label S1. So then we need our other lines. So if we want to speed things up a little bit, sorry, I just put a border, well, no, I didn't. So let's say we want to speed things up a little bit. And we want to just go ahead and draw these 2 lines to show that equilibrium. So we get the first line drawn, put it in the right place. And we want to go ahead and instead of already putting in the dashed line, we're going to go ahead and draw the second line right away. So whenever a line is highlighted like this and it has the dots on the end of it, it means that line is highlighted. So we want this line and this line to be dashed. So if I press shift and I click on this line as well, now you can highlight both lines at the same time and make them both dashed at the same time, saving just a little bit of time and making it a little bit more efficient. So we got to make a new text box here. We're going to label it P1. We want to make a new text box down here. And as you can see, as soon as I draw a line, I pretty much label it right away. That's going to be good practice to make sure that you don't forget to label a line. Now the last thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and insert, or not the last thing, but one thing I want to do is I want to insert arrows. So before we were just clicking on the line thing, but if you look off to the side of the line, there's a little drop down menu. Click on that, and now you can click on arrow. And now you can simply draw your arrows. And again, we want to put arrows on anywhere that there is a movement. So in this case, we have movements. We have the supply curve shift, so we see arrows on that movement. We have a change in the quantity, change in the price, so we have arrows on all of that. So now we've completed this graph with the exception of one thing. We want to add one thing right here, and that's going to be a title. I would like to see all of your graphs titled, so then you can simply put the title in the middle, and then whenever you press save and close, then you have this graph already embedded within the paper. So then you can simply press enter, type around it, and it works just as if it was basically a picture that's embedded in your project. Now let's say that you draw this and you decide, oh wait, something isn't quite right. I need to adjust something. Come on here, click right here, click on that, basically that picture, and then down here where it says edit, click on edit, and it brings up this tableau, and now you can adjust it any way that you want to. So that's a very brief and very quick explanation of how to do it in Google Docs. Let's see how you do it in Word. Now, personally, I prefer to do it in Google Docs, but if you're more familiar in Word, then you can do it in Word with no problem. So, if you want to start building this graph, or this chart, what I would do is I would go from the Home button to the Insert button, and I would go over here to Shapes, and then I would start with the line. So then you can draw your line down just like what we had before. Then it brings up these drawing tools. Here is where you can do like the shape outline. Say we want that line to be black. We want it to be a heavier line, so we want it to be, say, 3 point. You can also change it here to the dash lines like what we've seen before. So then we want to go ahead and insert a text box. If I can figure out exactly where the text box is again. Text box right there. So we're going to enter in a text box right here, and this is going to be labeled as P. Now whenever you start doing that, you're going to have to do a shape outline of no outline. Shape fill of no fill, so that way it doesn't start covering up your lines. And then you can go ahead and adjust that just like we had before. Now we need to insert a new line. So we want to say insert shapes line, then we can go ahead and draw this line. And now if it was me and I was doing it on Word, I would just go ahead and draw all of my lines in the beginning. Personally, I don't recommend that, but just to save a little bit of time, because obviously you can see that there's a lot more clicking going on with Microsoft Word. So I would just go ahead and draw my lines. Now let's say that we're going to do a shift and supply again. So I'm going to actually just copy, so Control C and Control V, and copy this line right here. Then you can go ahead and shrink it down and move it where you want to. Now that you've got all these lines, you can go ahead and highlight them all. And we want to go ahead and say that we want the outline of these to be a weight of, say, 1 point. Or, well, let's make it a little bit thicker than that because it doesn't seem to show up. We're going to make it all 2 1/4 point. Now we want this one to be black, so we got to adjust it there, and this one actually should be a 3 weight. Now we have all of these lines right here. We can go in here and copy and paste all of our different labels for our lines. So this one, of course, is going to be Q. We're going to say Control C, Control V. This one is going to be, say, our supply not. So we're going to have to make this, well, let's just call it supply. And this one over here, this one can be supply prime. And of course my computer is running a little slow right now, but that's how you're going to wind up doing it on Microsoft Word. Then we can go through the rest of the process of inserting these lines down here. So we're going to need lines showing this equilibrium price and quantity. And I'm going to just say copy and paste these. So just to make it a little bit faster for me. Rather than going up and clicking all of these other lines. Although that's not working well for me. So let's go ahead and say insert another line. But that's essentially how you're going to do it. Now, I'm not going to label everything just for the essence of time. I see that this video is running a little bit long, but you would have to go in and make sure you have all of these lines labeled using text boxes. You can come up here and insert in another text box for the title. And of course, you can adjust this, make it all look pretty. Now, the last thing is that right now all of these lines are independent from each other. They're not together. Whereas if you would try to move this whole deal, it would move individual lines. Well, that can be a bit cumbersome whenever you're writing a paper and it's moving things around. So the last thing I wanted to show you whenever it comes to Microsoft Word is you need to group these. So what you're going to do is you go in there and you'll highlight them all. So what you have to do is you have to click on a line or a text box, hold down Shift, click on the next line, and you can see it's highlighted now because the square ends show up. Hold down Shift, click on the next one. Hold down Shift, click on the next one. And you'll go through this whole process of holding down Shift and clicking on all these lines. And you have to be right on top of the line for it to work. And once you have everything highlighted, I'm actually going to purposely leave this line unhighlighted for right now. You go into Format, see if I can find exactly where it is. Let's go to Home, no, Insert. And I'm not exactly sure or where this is again, but there's a way right here under Page Layout where it says Group. Click on that and you say Group. So now it makes all of those lines we highlighted one big picture. But let's say you forgot a line, like we did, like I purposely did. Well, now that line is no longer being moved, and we actually forgot a text box too. So we have to go back, and now we have to, now that everything else is highlighted, we have to click on those two individual lines. We'll have to go back up here to group and say ungroup and then regroup. Now everything's together, and you can actually did not group everything. So where we have to click on those two, and now we'll have to go in there and regroup it. Now everything is together. So that's how you'll do it using Microsoft Word. And I know that this isn't a complete one, and I just noticed something, and if we wanted to go ahead and add the arrows in here, you would have to come in here, click on the arrow, go down with it, and then you would have to make sure you group that as well. You can adjust the color on Microsoft Word using this shape, basically the shape outline. So if you click on this individual one, you can adjust it that way. But that's essentially how you'll do it using Microsoft Word. Both of them are going to yield the exact same result. It's just a matter of which one you're more comfortable with. I hope this helps you understand more of what is being expected of you whenever you're actually drawing these graphs in your paper.